Let's go! No game. But that doesn't stop the LSU content from flowing, baby. Let's go! Derek Stingley Jr., one of the greatest LSU defensive players already of all time. And remember before the year when Kirk Herbstreit floated the Heisman thing? I said it before the year. If Sting was to actually win the Heisman, he would have to play better versus Alabama, where DeVonta Smith out of A-Meat, kind of gave him that work. And I think this year, Sting would have been better suited for the matchup. And what I want to do, all right, now look, if you're not a diehard LSU football fan, don't watch this video. Do something else. Go clean your lawn. In fact, I have to do something else, okay? Because this is only for you LSU football diehards. And guess what? Even you Alabama fans are going to like this video, because we're going to throw it back to the greatest mano-a-mano matchup I've ever seen in the SEC. That is two future NFL Hall of Famers, Patrick Peterson and Julio Jones. Those two had the best matchups. They were part of the same recruiting class, and they were fearless. And, Julio's famous touchdown against LSU in 2009 had a little bit of an asterisk. I'm going to show you why a little bit later. So, some of you have seen this Patrick Queen card right here. Yeah, guess what? This is a future NFL Rookie of the Year, and this card can be yours. All you got to do is subscribe, ring the bell, and you got to click all notifications. And if you do, you're automatically entered to win one of these cards. Let's go! Derek Stingley Jr., DeVonta Smith. This video's from Verified DB, so shout out to them. And so on this first rep here, even though it's an incomplete pass, this lets you know that this more than likely is going to be a rough day for Derek Stingley Jr. going up against the great receiver from A-Meat. And they have their own red circle, but as you can see here, Stingley was beaten on this comeback route pretty badly, but this was a missed throw. And good pressure from Rashard Lawrence to rush that throw. So there you go. Even though the pass was incomplete, DeVonta Smith won that rep. And Ryan Clark had a great breakdown of this with Matt Moscona, that this was the first time that Sting went up against an elite, and I mean elite, route runner. So he's not on Smith here, but on this snap, he is on Smith. And this play is pretty self-explanatory. If you watched the game last year, most of you already know what happened here. This was actually a trick play. So this wasn't really a win by DeVonta Smith. This was just great coaching by Alabama. And you'll see here on the replay that Derek Stingley Jr. had his head caught looking at the sideline. That's where LSU normally audibles or checks into something else. And right when all the LSU players turn their heads to the sideline, Alabama snapped it, and it's just too late. And here it is right here. So they're in man coverage, and all they do, this is just good scouting, and then right when this head turned, notice he wasn't the only person, Chase on as well. So that lets you know that Alabama outscouted LSU here. Boom. And notice he's already gone. DeVonta Smith, one of the great SEC receivers ever. Easy pitch and catch for a touchdown. So that's not really a loss on Derek Stingley Jr.'s part. And earlier this year, when I did the Derek Stingley Jr. Heisman video after Kirk Herbstreit said that, a lot of you came at me when I said that there was the one thing that Stingley needs to overcome is playing against Alabama. And this was really his only rough game as a defensive back last year. He deserved all the credit that he got. And you'll see later, and this was just a missed tackle. Great corners make this tackle. And at the very least, he made him go inside. Kept contained. So here we are again. This is as Island of a coverage as you're going to get. And what I mean by island, I'm talking no safety help over the top. Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, I guess, did they only have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? Well, I think LSU didn't have 11 people on the field here. This is weird. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They only had 9 players here. Unless I'm missing something. Hold on. This is wild. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's wild. I don't think they even brought this up in the broadcast. But anyway, it's still man coverage. And that's just a tough play. He underthrew it, back shoulder. That's wild, though. That is absolutely wild. I want to watch this whole game to see how many times LSU only had 10 people on the field. But either way, notice on this route, he actually stays with them on this double move. This is actually really good coverage. And even though this is a win, the only thing was he turned his head too late, but this is still just a tough play. Because the receiver on an underthrown ball like that is always going to be able to back shoulder this and make the catch. That's a tough play. That's just a good pitch and catch. And you'll see it here. Just a beautifully thrown ball. And there's sometimes that's just going to happen. 3rd and 1. I got to give DeVonta Smith the win here, folks. Even though this is, once again, a very difficult play to cover, I want you to see how much ground Stingley stuck up with him here. And the ball was actually late, but this is where the win happened. Derek Stingley Jr. last year, even when he was beaten, was so good with all his freak athleticism to always make up for it and make a play on the ball. And he had an opportunity to right here. And DeVonta Smith, strong hands, just won it. Any other receiver, I think Derek Stingley Jr. rips his football out. But DeVonta Smith was just on fire. And he almost still did. 4th and 4. Big-time players in big-time games make big-time plays. LSU, a lot of you would say the best player on defense last year was Derek Stingley Jr. He has an opportunity here on 4th and 4 to win this game. Alabama down by 12. All you got to do is make a stop. So what happens? Let's run it at full speed. And once again, this is a tough play to stop. He gets beat. And he gets beat really easily. And he knows it. Now, any other corner that exists on the planet Earth, when you're on man coverage against DeVonta Smith, you're going to get beaten on the slant a lot. But we're talking Derek Stingley Jr. We're talking about the greatest LSU corner maybe ever. One of the highest graded corners in the history of the sport last year, according to people that actually evaluate defensive backs. You expect him to, at the very least, contest this, but instead he gets cooked. Just a beautiful route, beautiful throw. And once again, that's not bad coverage for most defensive backs. But as you see here, his footwork was a little sloppy. He kind of lost his footing just a little bit. You got to look really closely. You see he's just reaching. Whenever, and this goes for any position, whether it's offensive line, whenever you see a player kind of just reach out, that means they're beaten. When you see an offensive lineman just reach their arm out, we did a study on B.J. Ojulari earlier this week, earlier this year, the great LSU pass rusher. Whenever you see someone just flail their arm like that, that means they're probably going to get beaten. No matter the position, no matter the sport, You see there, he kind of lost his footing here. But either way, he's beaten. And it was actually, he didn't step on anyone. 4th and 4. Jacoby Stevens makes a nice tackle there. But here's the thing. Let's go back. It's 4th and 4. 6:25 left to go. All you got to do is get Joe Burrow the football back. At least make this difficult. But it wasn't. Easy pitch and catch. Now, here's the other play. Time and place. You hear me talk about this all the time on LSU's film studies. You got to understand time and place. 1st and 10, 1:31 left, 46-34. Now, I don't necessarily mind aggressive coverage. I'm not so sure if this wasn't a blown assignment because he is the only guy playing press man coverage here. Take a look at how far back. Well, look, Fulton comes up. So, yeah, it's man coverage. Bump and run. So, if you're Derek Stingley Jr., let's go ahead and just play this full speed. If you're Derek Stingley Jr., you have to know to not get beat deep. Don't get beat deep. He got beat deep, and he fell. Once again, this is way more difficult. I know corner is one of the most difficult positions to play in sports. You just can't get beat deep there. And you can't just fall. And it's not only you getting beat deep, you're giving them plenty of time if they do recover the onside kick. So here's the thing. If you get beat right here, at the very least, don't fall down and run with them and at least tackle them. Instead, it's a touchdown. And it's simple. You just got beat deep. So what I'll do is link down below Ryan Clark talking about this performance. And let's be honest. It wasn't good. And as you can see here, as verified DVs points out, 1 tackle, 2 touchdowns allowed. One of those touchdowns obviously was when he looked towards the sideline. That was just good scouting and good coaching. But you look, and I'm not trying to be negative, I'm just telling you that this weekend when DeVonta Smith comes to Baton Rouge, Derek Stingley Jr., who had a rough game against Seth Williams last week, once again, if you want to see that Auburn film study, go down below. It's tough. It's tough. Now, only my true LSU diehards are going to stay with me right now because now we're going to look back at my favorite LSU player of all time because I don't feel like we give Patrick Peterson the credit he deserves. And we're going to take a look at him as a true freshman defensive back going up against the great Julio Jones, who is a better receiver than DeVonta. So here we are. 2008. I was in the LSU student section for this very play. And full disclosure, Patrick Peterson and I were friends in college. He was so cool. Like, I just really enjoyed talking to him at media sessions when I would just see him around campus. He was just a really cool dude. And my favorite thing about him was this dude is the most fearless football player I've ever met. It doesn't care who he's playing. He's going to try and beat you up every single time. And now, what I want you to see, okay, this was the freakiest thing about Julio Jones. He looks bigger than the offensive lineman. And I know they're down in a stance, but look at how freak of nature these 2 true freshmen were. And this, to me, is the greatest mano-a-mano. It's not Tua versus Joe Burrow or anything. It's Julio Jones, Patrick Peterson, greatest matchup in LSU history. So let's throw it back. Okay? Who won this play? Okay? I want you to answer this right now. Who won this play? In actuality, it's a tie. And I'll tell you why right after we look at the other replay. So this was the one rep from 2010 where they're legit playing man coverage. Patrick Peterson won this rep. So do you remember all the back shoulders that we saw with DeVonta Smith? Back shoulder throws, if they're perfectly thrown, especially when you're going up against a muscular big target like Julio Jones, they're nearly impossible to cover. Look at where this ball was thrown. And look, Julio Jones is the biggest freak of nature to ever play in the SEC at wide receiver. And Patrick Peterson was still able to drag him. Okay, now look at where the ball's thrown. Look at where it is. He actually could not have defended this. This simply was indefensible. Look at this. Look at where the ball is. Coverage is mano-a-mano. Who in the world? Darrelle Revis combined with Stephon Gilmore, combined with Dick Night Train Lane, combined with Ronnie Lott, is not ever going to stop this. So, what do you have to do? You have to, at the very least, tackle him. But look at this. He, at the very least, got his hand in his face to make this semi-difficult. And then, he's in midair. This is still one of the biggest freak of nature plays I've ever seen at LSU. He's in midair, so he's going to have to regather himself. And look at this. That's pure brute strength. Julio Jones is scoring 12 times out of 10 against any other defensive back not named Patrick Peterson. And look at this. That's want. That's desire. That's greatness. And I'm not going to lie, I was in the student section. I was about like 5 or 10 rows. When I saw this, it's still ridiculous. And I know LSU lost, and I know he got beaten on the play, but this is just will, desire, want. And that's when I knew this guy was a dog. You can be an all-time great talent. How much do you really want it? Take a look at this. I mean, this is just unreal. This is unreal, okay? I want you to look pre-snap here. He showed that he's playing and giving cushion. And then at the snap, he is sprinting full speed all the way up to the line of scrimmage. Okay, now look. He not only has to do that, he's got to regather because this is actually a go route. So after sprinting, you would think Julio Jones would just run right by him. But look at the athleticism. Look at this. He stuck with them step for step and still made the play. Was the ball a little underthrown? Was he pressured by Danny McCray? Yes. But look at this. Turn, look for the football, make a play on the football. Pat Pete, I love you so much. Are you freaking kidding me, people? Again! I'm telling you, this is the greatest film I've ever seen an LSU defensive back. And then, don't look, I have battle wounds from this. Interception. And this is what really started the Birmingham. And I had a conversation with someone on Facebook about this week. Look at him. How can you call this after a review? For those that don't remember, LSU's losing. He beats Julio Jones to this football. And even after review, what's going on? What is this? Out of bounds. Are you freaking kidding me? It's so unreal. And here's another angle of it. I mean, it's crazy. And believe it or not, I was on the sideline for this game. It's my first time in Tuscaloosa. Oh my God. It's stupid. It's absolutely stupid. And there's no guarantee that LSU wins it. I mean, you got to live with that. So this is the third matchup between these two Titans. First down. Completion. So now Julio's getting the better of him, but once again, it's these back shoulder throws. I don't know. Maybe a defensive back coach can watch this and give me some insight on it.
Good route. So 2 for 2 right here. But still, ultimately, when it comes to guarding Julio Jones, I think a lot of pundits would say Julio's probably the best SEC receiver ever. Jamar Chase is in that discussion, but Jamar did it for 1 year. Now that's ridiculous. Watch this again. And Jamal Adams made a lot of these types of plays. Julio, full head of steam. It's 3rd and 4. If you don't make this tackle, he's off to the races. Okay? 7-3. 8:38 left to go. That's just crazy. That's just freak of nature football. And I'm glad that CBS had a camera on these two at all times. Boom. That's just making a tackle football play. So here we go. Got to make this tackle. Throw it out of bounds. Now, here's what I want you to do. Make a mental note of this play because we're going to come back to it. All right? Because this play actually worked against LSU in 2010. And the funny thing about this is Patrick Peterson actually took the wrong angle here. You're supposed to take this block to the outside. Instead, he took it to the inside and still had the speed. And it's still a positive play for Bama, but anytime Julio gets it on that screen, anything 5 yards or less is good. See, once again, fights off the block, desire, will, want. And this is Julio just working him. And it was still contested. So in this game, Julio put in some good work on PP7. And just perfectly thrown. A defensive back coach would say you don't want to let this guy get that far inside you. And once again, anytime you say that, it sounds so weird. But look, it was still contested. But when you're playing a target like that, especially in the red zone, don't want him to get inside you. I wanted to show you this, and I hate it because Brandon Taylor is actually one of my favorite LSU players ever. I was friendly with him in college as well, and he does a great job now with the LSU radio team. So, once again, this is Nick Saban coaching right here. The score is 15-13, 10:37 left to go in this game. What happens here? Because, when I brought up Patrick Peterson versus Julio Jones, I believe it was like a year or two on Twitter or in a conversation, I don't remember. I always get told about this famous screenplay. Well, this is the freakiest thing that happened. Patrick Peterson got hurt on the play before. So guess what Nick Saban did? Right when he saw that, when Brandon Taylor was put into the game, this is the play that Alabama runs. Brandon Taylor misses a tackle. Off to the races. LSU doesn't score again. So what happened? Well, it's simple. Brandon Taylor, who's a safety, was put into the game at corner to stop the greatest SEC receiver arguably ever. So let's go back. And this is what happened. We don't get a replay on this video. So, the only mistake he actually made, he did a good job actually missing this blocker. Because, look, the design of this play is actually to get the defense flowing this way and just throw it right back to the opposite side, and then it's mano-a-mano. So, Brandon Taylor actually does the hard part well here. He misses the block of this offensive tackle. The only problem was not just missing the tackle, but giving him the sideline. So if you're going to miss the tackle, make him go inside where you have a little bit more help. But instead, he let him get the sideline. And it's tough because he had to fight through this block. And he's coming in off the bench, ice cold, playing corner. After fighting off that block, that's just what happened. And that's, once again, a really, really tough spot. And I would like to add that this was 2009. So why is 2009 in this LSU-Alabama rivalry important? Well, it's simple. 2009 was the last time LSU did not have a bye week before playing Alabama. Alabama had a bye week before playing LSU. So I talked to Kelvin Shepard about this, who almost made the tackle on that play. LSU had tired legs and then having to go on the road. And that's why Alabama started to dominate, particularly late in this game. And from this point forward, LSU will always have a bye week before playing Alabama because of stuff like this. So I was at this game. I did feel LSU get a little bit tired. And this was actually one of the better games Les Miles actually coached versus Nick Saban. But then, of course, LSU ended up winning the game in 2010, and then in 2011, and then we won't talk about 2012 to 2018. So, thank you guys so much for watching this film study. Let me know what you think down below. It's funny because we were talking about Derek Stingley Jr. versus DeVonta Smith early on. Well, this is what's fascinating about that matchup, is that we don't know what's going to play out between him and DeVonta Smith. Last week, Derek Stingley Jr. had a rough game against Seth Williams. In fact, it's just been a rough year. He had the injury against Missouri, which hampered him the rest of the game. And then first game of the year, he has a weird illness. And then he misses a game against Mississippi State. That hurt LSU really badly because they ended up giving 623 passing yards. You know, it's just been a rough year. And then Elias Ricks on the other side is, played better. He's been dominant. Had a pick six earlier this year. So what do you do if you're LSU? Well, number one, they do need to quit playing so much man coverage because it's not working. They're getting picked on. They can't keep contained. There's so many things they're doing wrong. But you do have to ask the question if you're LSU. Now that Alabama will be without Jalen Waddle, and I understand Alabama has a few more receivers outside of Waddle and Smith. There's Mechie and then Slade Bolden from West Monroe. They're both good players. But do you put Elias Ricks on DeVonta Smith? I don't know. But the reason why I showed the Patrick Peterson is obviously, we all like nostalgia. But Patrick Peterson got beat on that one snap. But it wasn't really him getting beat back in 2008. But notice what happened in 2009 when Patrick Peterson got another shot at Julio Jones. It was dominant football from Patrick Peterson. So now, can Derek Stingley Jr. take that same leap against DeVonta Smith? I don't know. I just don't know. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. What do you guys think? Should LSU put Ricks on Smith? Should LSU play more zone coverage? I don't know. Let's have a discussion in the comment section below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. And, don't forget, live stream Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Central. Let's go. It's Power Hour LSU. Boom.